the language of honor culture and shame culture really comes into the English vocabulary. And as far as I understand, that's really where it starts with the work of Margaret Mead, but particularly her student, Ruth Benedict, and her book, The
Hmm.
Chrysanthemum and the Sword, which I don't know where to track these kinds of things, but for a season
Mm.
years ago was the best-selling uh, anthropology book of all time. Um, Benedict, herself an anthropologist, interestingly was contracted by the U.S. government during the Second World War. And she's an anthropologist, and the State Department gives her the mandate to help the military and the State Department understand the weirdest, oddest enemy that they'd ever faced, Japan.
Hmm. Hmm.
So she writes an ethnography of Japanese culture. Now, Benedict had never been to Japan. She did not do classical ethnography there, in Japan. She relied on informants, many of whom were Japanese.
Hmm.
So she
Hmm.
does a level of what we might call armchair anthropology
Yeah.
from her space here in North America. But she writes this ethnography, and in it she makes claims that give the language of honor, shame, or shame culture versus guilt culture to the English speaking world. What that does is obviously is labeling any society as an honor shame society. What that does is it does two things. One, it then produces the conditions or the ingredients by which caricaturing can happen and does happen. But it also has a reflexive impact in that it tends to then cause us to not think of ourselves in those terms at all.
Hmm.
And usually what it does is it creates a situation where people will say, well, of course we do honor here, right? Yes, I went to my daughter's award banquet, and I like it when people call me Dr. Flanders. And of course, I also have this plaque that was given to me to recognize a certain level of virtue that I achieved in my writing my dissertation. But we're not like that. And really, that's where the literature has stagnated.
Yeah.
Is that it hasn't dealt with that weird tension. Well, of course we do shame, and we have shame, and I feel shame sometimes, and I see shame out there, but we're not like an honor shame society.